What's up, guys, and welcome to another episode of Chat with Will Grant. We are doing this awesome 3-month series with different topics every single week. I got my co-host, he's back, Dr. Edwin Adams, and this is one of our favorite topics, a growth mindset. So today, what we're going to be talking about is what is the biggest common factor in all successes? What do all of the successful people and the successful stories tend to have in common, and how can we develop that mindset? How can we develop the right mindset and the right mental framework to reach our potential? So without further ado, here is my co-host. Thank you so much for showing up today. Everyone who shows up, and of course, Dr. Edwin Adams. How are you doing, boss?
What is up, WG? Happy hump day, man. This is my favorite day of the week because I know exactly what's going to happen at this time slot. And I'm always excited, man.
Yeah, we've been going at these pretty much every single Wednesday around this time. So if you're wanting to jump in on these conversations live, you can go over to chatwithwillgrant.com. We have about 4 weeks left, and it's been a whole lot of fun, and I'm excited to go along with this one today. So today is all about a growth mindset, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. What is a growth mindset? What is a fixed mindset? Why is it important, and how can we use this into our daily lives? Before we start, Dr. Edwin Adams, what does a growth mindset mean to you? Are you there? You got muted on me, big dog.
Yeah, it's crazy how your YouTube always pops up when we get on these calls. I don't understand the internet at play here that YouTube starts playing in the background. I don't get that.
That actually does that to mine all the time too. I'm not sure what that
is.
Maybe
so
it's
strange.
Design. These all these episodes are actually for our live recording Chat with Will on YouTube. So if you're here live, or if you're on YouTube, if you miss any of these episodes, you could always go back to the YouTube channel and check out all the earlier and previous topics. It's easy to look, there's mine right here.
See, I don't know what's doing that. I'm going to have to investigate that, Will. But to answer your question, I think it's such a great question, is what does a growth mindset mean to me? So here's how I'll describe it, Will. You probably, if I were to ask you, you could go find a rubber band in your house right now, right?
Yep.
So tell me then, Will, when is a rubber band most valuable and useful? Is it in its relaxed state, or is it when it's under tension?
When it's under tension.
Exactly. So for me, that's what a growth mindset is like. If we lose tension between the person we are and the person we want to become, I think we fall in prey to the comfort zone and do not therefore have a growth mindset. So it is when there's tension and you're always stepping forward, you're always struggling, you're always questioning and discerning, you're insatiably curious about why you are the way you are and why the world is the way it is. I think that's growth mindset to me.
Yeah. And that's such a unique and awesome way to put that. I've actually never heard it put that way, because, we all know that growth is always done under tension. Is growth the only way to grow, the only way to get better, the only way to get closer to our goals is to step out of our comfort zone. When we're in our comfort zone all day, every day, we tend to not get anywhere, but already just what we have. Pretty much every single one of us have some sort of 2 different types of mindsets. And that's what we're going to be talking about today, is either having a growth mindset or a fixed mindset. And a fixed mindset, which, I've had before in my life, so many people have, and that's just where we're almost afraid to fail. We're afraid to try and put in effort because we're so afraid to be a failure, but not realizing that all successes have just been really good at failing, and that's what a growth mindset is to know that it doesn't matter what natural ability that we have the ability to develop and learn different skills, and this could go from sports, and this can go to business. This could go to just being the best friend or the best mother or the best sister or brother that you can be, to realize that a failure is not the end of the story, but a failure is actually the beginning of the story, and that's the huge goal, to really get closer to any single one of our goals, or just get closer to our potential, is to move from having that fixed mindset, afraid to fail, afraid to step out of the comfort zone, afraid to maybe look silly, to then going and just saying, you know what, screw it. I'm going to give it a complete send, so to speak. I'm going to send it all the way. And then if it works out, great. If it fails, that's what's going to give me the insights to show up the next day and get better. And that is the goal, because one thing that I've learned over and over in my life is the result that we're looking for is never guaranteed. But what is guaranteed is the process. So we have to find something in our lives to where we can learn how to, like that cliche saying, enjoy the process, because of the process is what makes the result. And, in that stoic philosophy that we always like to talk about, is only focusing on what we can control. And we could do everything right, and the result still might not come. And that's okay, because maybe that's not right for us at that time, but it's going to set us up with experience. It's going to set us up with insights. It's going to set us up with a whole new paradigm shift to show up the next day smarter, a little bit better, a little bit stronger, a little more insights to do whatever part of that process is just a little bit better.
Yeah, so much goodness right there, Will. I think we have all seen great examples of what a fixed mindset looks like. Just turn on the news, and focus in on the politics. Those are fixed mindsets that are polar in their beliefs. But Will, I would argue that when you walk into a gym, for instance, let's use the gym metaphor, since it's the perfect metaphor for growth other than nature itself. But when you walk into the gym, there are probably 1,000 different ways to build your muscles in there.
Yeah.
There's not one right answer. There are thousands of them. So I think a fixed mindset, using that metaphor, would be, nope, I've got to do bench press, burpees, and pull-ups in order to gain muscle. Whereas the
And then if
growth
I show up
mindset,
and if I can't do 50 burpees, I'm a failure, which,
there you go.
that's not the case. If you can't do 50 burpees, do as many as you can. And say if that's 4 burpees, right? I bet if you show up the next day and do another 4, and then if you show up the next day, you might be able to get 5. And then you show up again and you get 6, because your body gets stronger. Every time you do something once, it becomes a little bit easier. So then when you do something, then you can find different little um, insights to then do it a little bit better, a little bit stronger, a little bit smoother, and whatever that is, if that's art, if that's sport, if that's the gym, so yeah. So what can we do to go from a fixed mindset or to a growth mindset? But before we get to that, why is it important, and there's a few different reasons. Is one is we're more likely to succeed, you know if we if we show up with a fixed mindset, that tends to have us stuck exactly where we are, because the fixed mindset is the belief of, look, what I was born with, the cards that I was dealt, I can't change anything else. I'm stuck, I'm screwed. But to actually take the cards that you're dealt and then learn how to play them better, and then play another game, and then play another game, that's how we're going to get better. So we're more likely to succeed when we focus more on the process than the result. And what that is just presence. It's funny, every single story always seems to come back to how present we can be in our days, how present we can be in every single one of our art sessions, training sessions, work sessions, or just time with our family. Whatever's important to us, the more present we are with that, the better that it's going to be, and the better the result is going to be. And this is something that I've known, or I've learned from my own experiences, is the more I focus on the result that I'm looking for, the more I tend to stumble over my process. And the more I focus on this result that I want, it almost seems to push it away even further. But then if I could just keep that in the back of my mind, don't get me wrong, you do want to know where you're going. You do want to have a destination, but that's a very small percentage of it. Most of it is just going back to where you are at in this moment today, knowing what can you do just to get a little better? What can you do to get a little smarter? What can you do to learn one more thing today that's going to help make tomorrow a little bit easier? And the goal is not to make it easy, but when one thing becomes easy, you're able to see different sides of that whole scenario.
Yeah, there's an intention, right? I mean, your intention is to attain the outcome, but the outcome is the side effect of the process. So your
Exactly.
focus truly should be the quality of the process in which you're engaging in order to create the outcome you desire, right? So it's
Yeah.
not about the number 50. If we're talking about burpees, it's not about the 50 burpees. It's about how well do you do one and not get injured, and that you
Yep.
progress at some reasonable period of time, and that you keep progressing and growing. Without the intention, I think we're going to fall into accidental growth. Will that would be like waiting for growth to occur? That
Yeah.
if I walk close to the gym, maybe I'll gain some muscle.
Yeah.
Well, nope, it's not until you walk in and take the risk of
Yeah.
walking in the door of the gym that you actually experience growth. So growth
Not
is not
only
anything to wait for, because my friend John Maxwell would say, success finds you where you step, not where you stand. So
Yeah.
that's the comfort zone, right? That's where we stand a lot of the time, and we don't take the calculated risk. We don't set the intention. We don't follow through on the process.
Yeah. And it's not only the risk, but it's the effort. And that is another one of the biggest differences between a fixed mindset and a growth mindset, is knowing that what you put in is most likely what you're going to get out. There are, of course, those people in our lives that we all know that just wake up and that are just ridiculously good at everything. But what I've seen, especially in my life with sports, is that almost comes as a disadvantage, because, the people who come into my sport, and just like any other sport, and tend to be the most naturally talented, they tend to always rely just on their natural ability. And then once they get to the semi-pro level or the pro level, where everybody's really good, where they're actually reaching their goal, then all of a sudden they think that they suck and they just don't have what it takes to make it, that they're either somebody or they're nobody. When that's not the case at all. What makes the greats great, or what makes anybody good at anything, is being able to put in that effort to go from nobody to somebody. And it's that effort that you put in towards whatever is important to you is what's going to get you better at, because you got to show up. You have to show up, and you have to step outside that comfort zone, disrupt that comfort, and that's what's going to spark that growth towards that destination of what you're trying to do. And just to go back on another point, another reason of why this is important is you're not only more likely to succeed if you have a growth mindset, but it's a lot more enjoyable. It's a lot more fun, because let's face it, sometimes, or pretty much all the time, 50 burpees is going to suck, right? Like 50 burpees is going to suck. So you could go and do all 50 of those burpees just thinking, I can't wait to get to 50. 50 is going to, when I get to 50, I'm going to be done. I can't wait, just get me to 50. And then you're going to be miserable on every single one of those burpees. Or if you just turn the mind off, let the mind settle, know that that's where you're trying to go, but put that in the back of your brain and just bring yourself back into that present moment, and just putting all your attention and all your focus on every single one of those movements, or that whole entire process. And that's what's going to make that process more enjoyable, is when you have your full attention on it, is when you have your full focus on it. And when you give your full being, your full intelligence, and your full focus on that art or on that process, that's when you're going to see it in such a clear perspective, and kind of see it from all different angles, to where you're going to know what's the best next step. You're going to know how to do that first step a little bit smoother, how to do that first step a little bit better. You almost just got to get out of your own way, right, Edwin?
Yeah, absolutely. Will, looking at those beautiful trees behind you and that lush greenery, I'm reminded by nature's example of, I'll call it the law of trade-offs for lack of a better term. But if it gets really dry where you are, the number one thing that tree is going to do to reduce its need for water is it's going to drop some leaves, right? It's going to understand that in order to continue to grow, it's got to let something go.
Yeah.
So
It,
we've
it
got to
not
do
only
that
drops the
exact same
leaves,
thing.
it, they will not only drop their leaves, but their roots will actually go deeper. And that's boom, that's that process, that's that moment of where you're pressing those roots in deeper, shedding all the BS that's not serving you no more, and just focusing right on the roots and focusing right on the process. I'm so grateful to have this yard of my front and backyard of this permaculture style landscape, because this has truly been one of my biggest teachers to understanding growth, is watching how nature just naturally does it, is to sitting back and, it's funny, every time there's weather, it sparks growth. Every time it rains, it sparks growth. Every time that there's, I live in Florida, so we have hurricanes. Every time that there's a hurricane, the hurricane sheds off all the weak, dead sticks and leaves, and that's what sparks that new growth to come up. Um, so yeah, so if you want to learn more about the growth mindset, plant a tree in your yard, plant a garden, because that is one of the best things that you could, like, nature is literally one of the best teachers. If we can just sit back and observe, we're going to learn all the lessons that, are needed to be learned. And nature can be anything. Nature could be a forest, nature can be a beach, but I believe if you sit in New York City in that middle of the street and sit back and just observe, you'll see nature. You'll see, how humans naturally move, how birds and the squirrels, and you'll see nature. Nature is in absolutely everything that we do, and it could be one of the best and greatest teachers for our lives.
Yeah, so trade-offs are important. So we need to remember you might have to give up to grow up. So keep that in mind. But I think nature has given another example, Will, is the environment that you're in can either add to your growth or suck the life out of you, right? So
Yeah.
I know environment has been a theme in several of our conversations over this 12-week series. How do you intentionally create environments for growth as a professional athlete, and how do those relate to regular civilians trying to make it in this world?
Yeah, for sure. Well, sports is such a perfect example and the quickest way to really learn a growth mindset. So when I was first getting into sports, and, I hired a coach and a trainer, and I understood that I could train, I could work at something, put in that effort and get better at something, and that will get me closer to my goals. But then after, as my career developed, I was around a few athletes who were so naturally talented with such minimal effort. And then that made me feel like, oh, wow, maybe I just don't have what it takes. And then sure enough, you know, I started struggling a lot with that type of mindset because I started to develop this sort of fixed mindset. And then if I just kept showing up, those people who are naturally talented, they tend to get out of the sport because they run into their own failures and their own hurdles, and they think they don't have it when they are actually, the most talented of them all. And then what I did was I said, look, I got another shot at this sport of BMX racing. And if I'm gonna actually do this, I have to improve my environment. So what I did was I found some pro that was around the country who was better than me, right? And that's when I actually called up my current roommate now, Jeremy Smith, and I said, "Hey, you want to move to Florida and really pursue BMX and try to do it, all in on it?" And he was like, "Yeah." So he moved in and he had a perfect growth mindset, and it just helped me being around him to show up like he he's just an average person, like he was, he's got two arms, two legs, 10 toes, and 10 fingers. He didn't have anything special, and he wasn't necessarily like born with some crazy talent. he's just been doing it so long and getting better at it every single day. And this is what kind of changed my frame set to, oh wow, all I got to do is just show up and just focus on that process. And this translates into anything. If you want to get better at something, be around people who are better than you. And that is one of the biggest advice that I can give you to help develop a growth mindset. you know because a lot of people with fixed mindsets, they're afraid to be around people who are better than them, because it makes them feel less. It makes them feel not as good. But in actuality, it's like, one of your favorite authors, Ryan Holiday, he talks about the obstacle is the way. Putting yourself around people who are better than you at what you're trying to do is always going to give you those extra insights and step you out of your comfort zone, because it's going to be uncomfortable to be around a bunch of people who are better than you at something. Because then that's when your mind is wanting to go, and that's when you say, hey, look, shut up, turn the mind off, and just focus on what I'm doing. And that's all we got to do, is be around people who are good, uplifting, better than us, and then just focus on what we're doing and trying to learn and get better every single day. Every single day is just a beautiful opportunity to learn something, and to get better at something, even if we don't realize it. Our brain is absorbing, and our bodies are absorbing so much information of our day, as long as we keep that heart open and keep that mind open to realize that whatever happens today is going to give us a little bit more experience to do tomorrow a little bit better. And if we keep focusing on the day at hand, all of a sudden it's going to be 5 years down the road and we're going to be somewhere.
Yeah, Will, a lot of what you're saying speaks to the concept of self-awareness, from your emotions to simply being aware of what you're reading, what you're watching, and what you're listening to. That also plays into the law of trade-offs, that if you want to grow, you know what? You might need to give up watching TV. You might need to give up a set of friends who are not adding value to you. You might need to find something new in order to experience with intention a process of growth moving forward, because
Yeah.
I call all of those anchors, those things that hold us back from our full potential. Being aware of those enough, being aware of yourself enough to know what those are, is really a first step. Would you
Yeah.
agree?
Yeah, it's definitely and I think what AA dialed that in like 100 years ago, didn't they? Like the
Yeah,
first step to
admit, surrender. That's the first thing you do, is surrender
yeah.
to the fact that you have a growth issue.
Yeah, for real. And then is just becoming aware, and it's not easy to become aware if we've been doing the same things over and over and over. So that's why stepping out of your comfort zone will make you aware of things. So don't be afraid to move and step out of your comfort zone. But if you struggle with awareness and not quite sure, what's holding you back and what's not, the best practice that I can tell you to do is just sit with nothing, eyes closed, in your backyard, in your front yard, preferably outside, but you can do it in your room with your lights off. Just sit in stillness for a half hour. And for the first 3 to 5 minutes, then your monkey brain will start to go where it normally always goes. And then after 10 minutes, it'll go a little bit deeper. It might start going to stuff that happened 5, 10 years ago. After 15 minutes, then you might start to get a moment of stillness. And then after 20 minutes, then it might be a moment of peace. And then you start to realize what are the things that are really serving you in your life, and what are the things that are just anchoring you down, so to speak. And I recommend that for everybody. Like if you're confused or not confused, that's just going to bring clarity. It reminds me of cleaning the house or brushing the teeth. That stuff, it builds up. If you don't clean the house, if you don't ever sweep the floors or mop the floors or brush your teeth, that it's going to accumulate of all this BS that we've picked up over our time. Just to sit in that stillness and not consume anything and just let that go. It's kind of like how we started the conversation of breaking those dead leaves off. That happens in moments of stillness. That happens in moments of just sitting alone and breathing and feeling and letting the mind settle. You know, I came I had a little epiphany last week, and I realized that we all know that overthinking is bad, right? We all know that overthinking is the quickest way to push us further away from our goals. And what I found is the moment I catch myself thinking is usually the moment that I know I'm overthinking, all the time. Whatever you're doing, if you catch yourself thinking about something later or something or before, or maybe just thinking about that, stop and just focus on what you're doing, because you already know you're not going to learn anything by thinking. We learn by observing, we learn by listening. And it's really hard to listen when our mind is talking, and that's all thinking is chatter in our mind. So what I found is, if and that's not easy. That is a practice in itself. So don't just say, oh, my mind went, I failed. That's the fixed mindset. Know that every time that you do notice your mind going and you bring that back to the present moment, you just did a big deadlift for your self-awareness. Now, I'm going to say that again, but maybe a little slower. Every single time that you notice your mind going somewhere else and thinking when you're in the present moment, just be aware of that, notice it, let it go, and then bring it back to the present moment. And every single time you do this, you'll get better at doing it. And that's really the exact way to describe a growth mindset. Is every single time that you do it correctly, you get stronger at doing it better. And every single time that you do it wrong, you become a little bit more aware of how not to do it. So just know that, and this goes into the how. How do we develop this mindset? And not only just a develop of the mindset, but how do we actually put this into our daily lives and actually make it a practice? And one is to realize that the failures are actually the opportunities. Okay. So if you look back on your 2020, right, of last year, and just take a few moments and note everything that went wrong, er- everywhere you failed, that's what's going to gain you the insights to learn how to do it better for this year. And every single time that we do fail, it's not the end. That's the opportunity to then readjust the wheel and then start on the new path. And that new path is the direction towards usually the result that we're trying to go.
Awesome. Well, David's asking, what is a way that you can, quote, let it go, close quote, when you find yourself thinking?
Good question. Good question. What I like to do is take a big inhale, inhale the good shit, and just exhale the bullshit. For real. Sometimes it might take 3 breaths. Sometimes it might take 4 breaths. But what's beautiful about our breath is our breath will always take us into that present moment. Okay. So when we're noticing we're thinking and we're going and it's that chatter, just, whoa, look at me thinking. Look at my ego go. Look at my ego running away. I always like to laugh at myself. Like when I catch myself, I'm like, oh, look at my ego showing up to play for a second. So then that awareness, that's that good deadlift that's going to build that strength to do it better next time. And then just take a nice inhale in and then exhale, and use that breath to bring you right into that present moment and just get back to what you're doing.
Yeah, I
I hope that
appreciate
helped,
that.
David.
I appreciate that a lot, Will, because I think I think it's easy to say let it go, right?
Yeah.
But we're not really letting it go. We're recognizing it. We are appreciating the ego position or not of where that came from,
Yeah.
and then we're going thank you, and then we're moving on.
Yeah.
We never let it go. It's always going to be part of us, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, like another way to let it go is to, like, we feel that tension inside our bodies as well. And you can stop and consciously let that shit go, like just to stop for a second, especially, if Becky's chattering in your ear about some BS that's not helping you, or, somebody's calling you on some stuff that's trying to bring you down. The easiest way to let it go is you'll notice that your body feels tense. Your face might be crunching up, in between your eyes start crunching up a little bit, just to release kind of like letting go, release the tension in our body can release, the tension in our mind as well. And again, we could do that with our exhales. Every time that we exhale, we can all do that right now. Just take a 3-second exhale, and then 5 seconds exhale and release the tension inside your neck. And if you didn't feel it, just keep practicing it. Set a timer for 10 minutes, set a timer for 15 minutes, and literally practice releasing the tension inside your body. And that could be the literal practice of releasing the tension and letting go of the BS that's just holding us back. And then we're going to take our first few steps a little bit lighter, a little bit faster, a little bit quicker, and a lot more precise.
And Laura's even saying, jump in a cold shower. You won't be able to think.
Yeah, exactly. That's always been a great go-to of mine as well, is that cold. And because why the cold is so great, because it's uncomfortable. When you're uncomfortable, you're forced to do. You're forced to survive. You're forced to grow. So if you are feeling a little funny at any time, just jump in a cold shower, and that's just going to help resettle and rebalance you almost immediately, reharmonize, so to speak.
Awesome. So, Will, what's the challenge this week to get people disrupting their comfort zone and stepping forward into growth?
Challenge this week. See, like, that's going to be difficult because it's going to be different for everybody. What I want to leave everybody with is, we all know what's really important to us. We all know what we wish could be happening. We all know what our intentions are and what our goals are. Just that's already there. Write those down, and you don't have to be thinking about those all day, but then just focus on what you could do each day to get better. Every single day, just try to sharpen your own saw. Sharpen your own saw mentally, sharpen your own saw physically, sharpen your own saw spiritually, and then just chip away at that sculpture, so to speak. If you were trying to, make this beautiful sculpture, and then halfway through something happens and then you just quit, it's not quite done yet. You got to just show up the next day and chip at it a little bit more. It doesn't matter if you get a little done or a lot done. Just keep showing up every single day. So I guess the challenge is this week is devote an hour, 1 hour every single day towards just getting better, getting smarter, learning, studying that process, or diving fully into that process, phone up and away on airplane mode. If that's art, if that's business, if that's sports, it doesn't matter what it is. Just give yourself 1 hour a day, phone on airplane mode, mind turned off, not thinking, and just completely diving into that moment. And then after that hour, now this is where the growth mindset really sets in. After that hour, notice what went good. Okay. Write down what went good. And then notice what you think you could have done a little bit better. And then just that's the focus for the next day. And just keep showing up day after day, just trying to get a little bit better. And don't worry about the process, or don't worry about the result. Okay, because that's gonna come. Just keep focusing on the process and genuinely trying to enjoy that process, because that's all we're guaranteed. We might as well try to be grateful for what we got and moving on with there.
Yeah, and while you're sitting there, think of the 3 or 4 things that we really centered on right now. We talked about a rubber band. Where can you stretch a little bit more? The law of environment. What can you do to place yourself in better growth environments? Trade-offs. What trade-offs can you make in order to give up to go up? What intentions can you set for yourself that make you uncomfortable and maybe take some risks that you wouldn't normally take? Think about those when you're
And
sitting
don't
in
be afraid to
silence.
fail. Do not be like, just know that the most successful people are only the best failures. Okay.
Yeah, look at Elon Musk. He failed so many times. He
Yeah,
launched
perfect
rockets into
example.
space.
Yeah. Elon Musk is probably a perfect example that we all know about, that just has the ultimate growth mindset, because he's failed publicly, where the news and the media has literally try to make him seem like a fool in a million and one different ways. And he just shows up the next day and gets back to work, and then every single time he fails, guess what? He learns how to do it better. And that's the beautiful thing about failure. Don't be afraid to fail, because that's where the opportunity is. That's how you learn how to do it better. That's how you get better. Fail fast, fail again, and then just keep learning how to do better.
Well, Will, I know you are hitting the road to go have some success over in Alabama to race this weekend. I hope it turns out to be a tremendous growth experience for you and a podium stand. How about that?
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much, everyone, for showing up. Do not forget, if you want to join in on these conversations, go to chatwithwillgrant.com. We got really awesome topics coming out every single week. And we got some really cool things going over on at thewillgrant.com. So we got that Nutrition 101 Masterclass. If you want to talk about awareness, we have that Breath 101 Masterclass. Learn how to dive into the present moment, learn how to understand and study yourself and grow yourself with the Breath 101. And we have that Happy, Healthy, Strong in 6 weeks as well. So if you have any questions, comments, or anything, email us, write us on social media. We're here to help, and we're here to help you grow, evolve, and become happier, healthier, and stronger. Because that's the beautiful thing, is because we are just individuals of a makeup of a whole. So the stronger that we can become as individuals, the stronger and happier and healthier that we can be as a species and as a planet. So we're all in this together, guys. Let's help each other out. Let's lift each other up, and let's be happy, healthy, and strong.
Awesome. Safe travels, Will. Thanks for being here, everybody.
Thank you,
Take care.
Edwin. See you guys.